I think you can hear me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming into the virtual art.earth Highcross House residency space with us. I'm going to turn up the speaker. Can you wave if you hear me? Brilliant. Hello. Lovely. Well, welcome everyone to a 1.5/2 hour informal presentation of our 4 students. We are art.earth. I'm Minu, and Richard is outside. I will hand over to him in a moment. We've had the pleasure to spend 2 weeks here at Highcross House at Dartington with 4 brilliant students from the MA Arts Place, with Alison, Gavin, Mary and Emma. And it's been just a really wonderful time to spend time and inhabit this building together, develop practices, have conversations, walk on the grounds, and much more. So I'm going to start off with a very short slideshow of a few images that we took over the course of the residency. And then I'm going to hand over to Richard, who is outside Highcross House, as you can see. Hi, everyone. And then we're going to start with student presentations. And at the very end, Alison is going to share a short practice with you, and then we're going to open up to some questions. I want to say one more thing, which is the module in which students have are doing this residency is called the Contemporary Remote. So that's kind of the overarching theme for students during this residency. So I am going to share my screen. Can you see that? Okay, brilliant. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mary. Hi. Hi, all of you. Hello. Yeah, that's fine. So welcome to, I'm going to minimize this if I can. Okay. Art.earth residency for 2 weeks. We started on the 8th and we are finishing today. One second.
It all looks fine here, Minu.
I cannot see the screen moving. One moment. Okay, now it does. So the Contemporary Remote. Our artists are Alison Jackson-Bass, Gavin Blench, Mary Waltham and Emma York.
Yeah, all we're seeing is the opening slide.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I might try it like this. Can you see this?
Can still only see the opening slide.
Resume share.
Thank you. How is that?
That's good.
Okay, brilliant. So Highcross House. Alison did some photo development in her ice fishing tent, which she pitched up here at Highcross House. Here's some exercises of which we did at the beginning of the residency. We did a slow walk a blindfolded experiential exercise, as well as we created a sound map. And we held a session underneath the tree, and the weather was just wonderful. So some of the sound maps here, some images of Gavin and Alison listening. And here we have some images of Gavin painting. It's been really, really wonderful to be around a painter and for Gavin to inhabit this. It's the biggest space here at Highcross House. Alison Jackson Bass, who experimented with many different materials, including lots of pigments from Dartmoor and lots of pinhole photography. And the melting of pewter on lots of different materials. So I can tell you that there has been a lot of activity here, which was wonderful. Emma York weaving a tapestry on the top balcony of Highcross House, called, I believe, the sleeping balcony or something similar. Everyone made their little desk space and little workspace in different rooms in Highcross House. That's Emma's desk. And Mary, her 6 pots. We will hear more about that later. A little picture from our library here at Highcross House, which we brought, and some more images from Mary. And finally, we will end with a micro-residency later on. So thank you. Just as a little intro to the space here at Highcross House. And now I would like to hand over to Richard. Richard, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually on the other side of the phone, so you can't see me. Here I am. Hello. And we are outside Highcross House, so we are just about to, I won't try and describe the house, but you can see that it's a modernist house, gorgeous house. And I'm just going to come in. This has been our home for the last 2 weeks. And I'm going to simply, we can just kind of walk around the house and I think we're going to start in the main room with everyone. I mean, you can hear me now, so we can turn the TV down. And Gavin, I'm going to start with you. So you're sitting over there. Shall we start over here?
So what we're going to do, we didn't expect a physical audience, so it's great. We made a concept for an online audience. So what we're going to do now is we're going to walk through the building and we'll stop at each artist.
And come, either come with us or watch it on the screen, however you choose.
Probably better to watch.
That might be better. Yeah.
I'm going to do this the boring way. So starting with the first one I did and ending with the last one I did.
Okay.
So going clockwise, yeah. This was the first piece I did, and it was just great to work sort of big and in a big space and not really squished in. I normally am in the studio, but it was this project was based on the expression of Newton Albert down, which is where my studio is. And it's quite sort of, it's been quite a shocking experience over the last few years. a remote space has become part of the town and will be more and more so as the years go by. So I wanted to do a piece of work about that. I found it really, quite an emotional kind of journey, sort of dealing with that, and also sort of linking into my experiences as a kid, sort of escaping the town and looking back on it from a distance. So there's all sorts of things got wrapped up in doing this piece of work, like it often does when you start making artwork, it sort of leads you on. So I started with this piece here, and that was using ochre and acrylic paint. And then I started on these big housing pieces, and that was using ochre that we collected from Yarn Woods at the beginning of the residency. We all ended up using the ochres that we collected in different ways, so it's nice to sort of see a commonality in our work. So yeah, I did some of those big pieces, and then I started to look more at the photographs that I'd taken up on site. The weather conditions was really strange. I expected to be going up and drawing and taking photos all week. In the first week at the site I'd chosen, and it ended up being about an hour and a half because the heat was just so intense I couldn't be outside. So I just went up and took photos and film. So yeah, in terms of what I made here in the space, the next one was the piece over here, which was just a close-up of some of the housing in the photograph. In the photographs that I'd taken. Yeah, and again, I'm using a lot of the ochre here that we've gathered. All this colour here is the ochre, and that's mixed as an egg tempera. Alison showed me how to make egg tempera, so that was a really, really good new thing. And I started drawing and painting, and it really got the kind of look of the pieces I was sort of after, really. And that was just by sheer just trying it out and not worrying too much about what the outcome would be. But it led me onto a whole new channel of work in terms of dealing with the housing and the dryness of the land.
This is a new kind of paint.
This is all new. I normally work in oils on canvas, so working on big rolls of paper was great, and being able to work with ochres and acrylics and things was all very different for me. So it was a different way of working. It was more immediate in a lot of ways. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. So this led on to doing some of the bigger drawings of the housing estates. So we started this one here. Again, using ochres and using charcoal, and I really like the results. So it's not often I like a finished piece, but I ended up really liking the feel of these drawings. And then the last one I made was probably the simplest, which was just a large charcoal drawing of the houses, the housing estates. And there's some of the photographs there that I was working from. And you can see sort of how the housing is gobbling up the countryside. I mean, I'm interested in the palimpsest and how things are sort of overlaid over time. So my sort of initial desk research was using a lot of georeferencing map websites that allow you to look at the same place through different maps and through LiDAR and all sorts of different overlays of imagery. So you can see how things are built up over time. I was hoping that the technology hadn't caught up with the building, but it has. So, yeah, it's all sort of mapped out now. And I should think it's probably going to be updated because they're going to be building all the way out to the A38 from Newton Abbot, which is about 5 miles. The valley is going to get covered with houses. There's a massive expansion going on at the moment, something like 60,000 houses altogether in the Teambridge area. So yeah, that's kind of quite sort of big and quite quite a change to the countryside that I'm used to. I've had a studio out there for about 10 years, and it was pristine sort of South Hants countryside sort of 10 years ago, and now the housing is just sort of swallowing everything up. Yeah, so
Right.
yeah, I've really enjoyed working here. It's been great to have lots of space and lots of great company, and yeah, it's been really good. And it's been what's been so great is how we all changed our plans radically because of the weather scenario, and that was sort of a gathering experience as much as any, and being in Highcross House just felt a little green oasis in parched desert land, really. So we've all sort of enjoyed being here loads. Yeah, it's been really great.
Thanks, Kevin. That's great. We've got lots of comments and questions coming in on the chat. I think we will, after we've been around the house and we've seen everybody, we'll open things up. So so do keep those questions coming, and we're going to move on to Alison, who's in the dining room next door. I'm going to walk us slowly so it doesn't get too blurry. But come and live audience, come and join us. So, Alison, over to you.
Yeah, so basically I was going to look at extractive practice. I wanted to identify 2 or 3, probably tin mines, copper mines, and then I was going to document them with pinhole photography. And I knew there was one site at Yarner Wood, which is next copper mine, which had ochre, which I believe Gavin's already mentioned, and I wanted to explore that. But it was so hot, it was just too hot, and there was no way I could walk out onto the moor. In fact, Gavin warned me against it. So, as he says, we changed plans. So I did do a few pinhole photographs when the 3 of us went out to Yarner Wood. They weren't terribly successful. But when I came back, I started doing photos here. So I'll just show, these are my pinhole cameras. I just wanted to make it clear how easy pinhole, as long as you can get access to a dark room or a blocked out room, you can do pinhole photography. And there's a big pinhole photography fraternity. And all you need is photographic paper and the chemicals, although there are ways of making sustainable developers from plant material. So this is what comes out of a pinhole camera. It's a negative, but it's on paper, so it's not on film. And then you do what they call a contact print, which is where you get a clean sheet of paper and you put the negative on top, expose it with a light. I use an iPhone, so it's very accessible. And then you develop that and you get the positive image. And I've done a few of those, and because I really wanted to engage with the house is such an amazing space. I've dotted them around in interesting places in the hope that people will stumble over them. I didn't want it to be a display in a white room. I wanted people to suddenly notice them, because one of the things I'm really interested in is discovery and wonder and play. I also picked these up yesterday. They're bits of blue off the front of the house. Let me just show you my tent. I don't know if you'll keep the signal, but so I had this fantastic location under the tree. It's caused a bit of consternation because I think they've got people living in it. And here's some of the pieces that we bought. It's mainly Emma and Gavin bought these back, and we dipped them in ochre at the site because the ochre is coming out of a deep mine, a deep copper mine, and it's coming out one of the drainage adits. But we've all noticed this colour has been pervasive for these 2 weeks. The leaves are that colour, the grass was that colour. Gavin's been working in that colour, the furniture and the fittings are almost that colour. So it seems to have been everywhere. And I also experimented with the ochre. This is just playing around, seeing how it works with charcoal, graphite. I had hoped to see some charcoal workers at charcoal burn, but those I contacted said they'd done it the day before. I also hoped to go and see a ball clay works, but they haven't been back in touch. But I'm going to pursue those onwards because I think this is going to be work in progress. And I also brought with me some pewter. At my last residency, a jeweller showed me how to melt pewter, and it's just so exciting. It's a bit like hot mercury. And I wanted to, part of my practice is seeing how different materials work with each other. And so I've tried it. This one was quite interesting. So it was with paper, and I cut a hole in the paper. I'd already put the ochre on. I wanted to see if the paper would burn. It hasn't really, but it went through, so it's locked into the paper, and that's the texture of the paving slab outside. I poured some into some ochre. It does spit and spatter, as Richard and I discovered later. He videoed me pouring some on what I thought was dry bark. It wasn't quite dry, so we both got a tiny spatter of hot metal. And I don't recommend that with a residency house, that you splash them with boiling metal. And then I also wanted to see whether you could trap things in it and whether you could mark it. This is actually a piece of stone from Yarna wood, and I just poured it over. And so this pewter now is lead free. So it's primarily tin, and my hope was that I was going to find a tin mine and potentially go to the site and pour some of the molten metal on some of the stones if they were still standing, but find some way to bring tin back to the site. But that is something I will try and do, but not at the moment. So there is one photo up here. Let's have a look at. I don't know how well, I'm going to put these on my website. So if you want to see them properly, they will be on there. That was actually one from Yarna wood. Old film canister. I also did do a little bit of sanitizer. I'm going to do more because I wanted to tone sanitizer. Sanitizer contains iron, and if you add a tannin, it changes it from the traditional blue colour, so it can go grey or black or even purple. But it was such a rich and extraordinary 2 weeks. I've just run out of time. I really needed an extra week here. But what I have done, I need to go and pick them up. But I've buried some in the garden, some pieces that didn't quite work. And it has changed slightly. I think the ground is so dry. I think this was actually under an oak tree, which should have toned it, I think. It may need to be there longer, but the ground was so dry, it's not working terribly well at the moment. But I'm going to go and dig the others up and see if they've worked. But I think that will be an interesting thing to do, because if there's tannin in the ground, it will change the cyanotype colour and bring it right back to place.
I think there was a question just came in about how hot was it, man, from Heather, and I presume whether you talking about the outside temperature. So it was in the high 20s, wasn't it?
Oh no, it was
Is it 30?
35, something like
Was it
that.
really?
Yes, and we went up to Yarna Wood, which is all woodland, and it was really hard work.
Yeah.
And that was in the shade.
Yeah.
So Gavin said, don't go onto the moor because there's no shade.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main reason we completely changed our minds and just used this extraordinary house as a base. It was a cool oasis. One morning I couldn't get in. It was just so hot. And I couldn't wait to get back here. And the house has been so happy. We've just felt that the house is happy to have people in it and to have the air and the heat going through it. Shall we wander through?
Yeah.
I did put one here. I tried to
Follow us.
please follow us. I tried to put them in sort of unexpected places. There is one in the loop. I won't bother sharing that with you. I wanted people to just come across the images. There was one of Gavin working, which I just realised you probably didn't see, but I'll show you that later. So I did do about a 20-second exposure in the garden while Gavin was out on the patio and he was working on a big piece of paper. So everything's reasonably sharp except Gavin. There's this strange blur in the middle that doesn't quite look human, but it captured the 20 seconds that Gavin was working. And I will find some ways to share that, but it'll certainly be on my website and I'll be putting it on Instagram. And then this one up here. So that one, Richard. You can be really creative with pinholes. And I made a pinhole with 3 holes out of a coffee can. And that was taken of the house using the top and bottom hole. So and that's something you explore further too. And then there's one here. Oh, sorry, this one here. Highcross House is a really great subject because it's so dramatic and so recognisable, and these wonderful geometric shapes. So for pinhole photography, it's great. Sorry, there was one back there.
She missed.
Yes, it's even I don't know quite where it was. And then there's a couple of things up towards the top of the house. It's a wonderful space, and this is the original banister rail. It's the most beautiful solid wood, hardwood banister rail. So this was a photo I took. It's a still life of Emma's desk. So you can see in the foreground, you can see some of the ochre and dirt that was just on her desk. And you probably can't see on Zoom, but again, it'll be on my website and probably on Instagram. You can see the book, which I think it says something like Walking on Dartmoor, that was on her desk. I'm particularly pleased with that one, and I will do more of those. And then there's some objects upstairs. We'll hand it to Emma. So there's some objects outside on the bench. So these are some pieces that Emma brought back that she dipped in ochre at Yarna. This wonderful bark, and she's placed a leaf in it. There's also actually a little green leaf on there, which is very beautiful. I'll turn these on. And then these were 2 pieces, again, I did with molten metal. I wanted to see how it worked on stone and bark, and whether I could stand things in it and use them as use the hot metal as stand. I thought it might burn through, but it hasn't. It has burnt there. You can probably see there's a dark patch because I poured some metal on it earlier, and it created, you can see the leaf veins, which is really interesting, and I should be exploring that further. This would probably come off, but I've left it. But no, it's been the most fantastic, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank you and Minnow Richard, because it has been, I want another 2 weeks here. It's just been, if you look at the view and you can see Dartmoor, I mean, who wouldn't want to spend more time here? It's just, and also you've been incredibly generous with everything really, but particularly advice, and your tutorials were so useful. I've learned a lot and I've clarified my practice in my head just from the things you said to us. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind. And Emma, yes, there you are. So I'm going to hand over to Emma, who's been working up here on the top terrace. So we are on the top floor now.
Okay. So yeah, my presentation is going to be a little bit different because I'm doing a presentation as part of my module assessment. So I'm going to take a seat because it goes on it goes on a bit longer than the others. And basically, I'm going to I'll just I've written something, so forgive me. I'm going to read it off here. So I just want to say welcome to everyone to the roof terrace, which I'm so lucky. This has been my studio the last 2 weeks. As you can see behind me, this is a tapestry that I've woven whilst I've been here, which has been just kind of an amazing experience. But before I just start talking through that, I wanted to talk a bit about some of my thinking about the term contemporary remote, which you've heard is our module theme. And also I'm going to be brave and share some writing that I've been doing here, which I've never done that before, so be kind. So when I began thinking about my own experience of being remote, I realised that I kind of find the idea of remote in geographical terms quite problematic, that it kind of assumes a single authoritative position to which one must necessarily be remote from. And my own feelings of remoteness seem to have nothing to do with geography. In fact, they seem to be sort of inversely proportional to how long and how far I travel away from my sort of everyday life. So the first piece I've written is a love letter to a very remote place that I have been to, an island in the Finnish archipelago. And it kind of speaks to my very intense experience of this sort of paradox a few years ago. And I'm going to sit down and read it.
Yeah.
Tell me if you can't hear. So it says, my beloved, there is no better way for me to tell you that I love you than to write you a love letter. A letter to and a postcard from. You are my beloved island, my dream world, my escape. First time I set eyes on you, despite having travelled so far to reach you, I had a strange sense of familiarity. Although I knew quite well that I didn't know you, I couldn't ignore the way I felt when I saw you, as if I had found something that I'd quite forgotten I was looking for. But once I found it, I knew at once that it was utterly indispensable. I couldn't imagine how I'd done without it for so long. Like a deep breath or a long dunk of the head under bright, clear water, I was simultaneously refreshed and satiated just from looking at you. But then immediately I wanted more. I wanted more all of a sudden, right away, post-haste. 4 years has passed since I last saw you. I am no closer to believing that I can forget you. I long to make that true, but my physical body won't allow it. I still get that feeling of weightlessness at the pit of my stomach when I think of you, a kind of lifting up and out of myself at the thought of the breathtaking beauty of the blue of your sky and the freshness of your sea and the cool, breathing stillness of the forest at night. Longing and memory make strange, uncomfortable bedfellows. It was a hot summer just like this. Desire smouldered on the air like the haze across the fields late in the afternoon. I wanted to know you intimately. In all my memories of being with you, I feel like I've been seized with them. My skin tingling, my hair damp, lifted up of my neck, which your cool breezes caressed. In my memories, I am very, very happy. I remember one night that was boiling hot and the mosquitoes were huge. I remember standing on the beach of the lake. The blurring light made silhouettes bleed into each other. The gap between us was imperceptible. I stood in silence and looked at the harvest moon above the dark pine forest. The sky was a silvery pale, no longer light, but not yet dark. It was midsummer in the northern hemisphere. Late at night, or very early in the morning, the whispering traces of a light that never quite sleeps keep me awake too. My body clock was becoming aligned to yours. I felt wired, hyper alert. As I lay there, I felt you hearing me breathing, holding me in your awareness. And that feeling made me feel calm and peaceful. And I was never frightened, despite the strangeness of it all. I remember cycling past the cut field, where the family of deer liked to gather late in the afternoons. The field colours were burnt umber, rose pink, coral. The forest behind was deep, mossy green, with burnished yellow lichens and silver branches. You were like a jewel box, a painting come to life, a child's picture book called The Enchanted Island. Another day, I sat in the sun on the deck of the ferry, watching the crystalline waters, smooth as anything, more silver than blue, dazzling in the sparkling refracted sprays of sunlight. So much light. It was a total immersion in the brilliance of a magic trick of water and sunshine. The whiteness of the light enfolded me and left me breathless. The day grew more and more brilliant. I ate lunch in an inn on the shore of a tiny harbour on a tiny island, no more than a speck on a map somewhere in the sea between Sweden and Finland. I cycled to the church on the headland. I looked inside for a long time, and I thought about the women praying here for the first glimpse of a mast on the horizon, a sighting, the return. A model ship hung suspended in the nave, a talisman flying across the skies to sanctuary, a course set fair to home. Afterwards, I swam, pushing out from dark red, flat bedrocks into the sea. The cool water, a relief from the heat. And then I sat and absorbed the warmth of millennia radiating from the deep wine-coloured rock through the dampness of my swimsuit. I wanted for nothing more, nothing different, no future, no past. 4 years has passed since that day. Every day I carry on with my life that does not have you in it. I am grateful for what I have. By turns, satisfied, content, happy. I have stopped writing sad poetry and making paintings that bleed with the colours of our meeting and the depth of my sorrow at our parting. I have moved on. But sometimes, on a very hot, hazy, midsummer late afternoon, the deep blue of a shadow or the pink umber hue of a sun-drenched soil stops me in my tracks, chokes me with my breath and punches me in the stomach. It so bitterly reminds me of you. I breathe out, turn away and carry on. I admonished myself for my stupidity. How could I let the memory of you upset me so? What was it about the dazzling sunlight, the brilliance of the glare on the water, the heat of the sun, the intoxicating palette of the colours that connected to something so deep inside of me? Much as I want to deny it, the truth is, Corbo, that I love you still. This is a love letter to you, one which I know will never receive any kind of reply. Why is it that we can love a place with no expectation that it loves us back? We can feel held, embraced, nurtured by a place. We feel a unique bond, a special connection, a secret communion that we can't easily put into words. We don't feel jealous. We don't guard our love place from others. We share it freely, and our joy is made manifold by the joy and love others feel. But the trouble is that you somehow connected me to a part of myself that had been lost. Before I found you, and since I lost you, I have felt cut off, at sea, remote from myself. I know that this is fanciful, that I should be able to find that part of myself anywhere. People find the idea that a place could complete a person absurd and strange and inexplicable. Perhaps I don't really believe it either, but I do miss you so. And in my heart, you are still the place I call home. Yours as ever, Emma. Thank you, everyone. That's my little love letter. So I'm going to read a little bit more, if that's okay with you. Thank you. So thinking then about remoteness as a sense of being disconnected, alienated, or somehow lost, I realised that this sort of activates for me this narrative of longing, perhaps for the past or the future, the real or the imagined. And it brought to mind for me a quote by the writer Kelly Bone, who described an artwork by Francis Alice as existing in the future unreal conditional tense, the tense of utopian longing. And this idea of a tense of utopian longing felt reminiscent to me of my feelings for contemporary remoteness, my experience of it, and led me to reflect on the experience of Aina Curry, the wife of the headmaster for whom Highcross House was initially built, and who arrived here at Dartington in the early 1930s at the height of the Elmhurst experiment in utopia here on the estate. Sitting on this terrace last week in temperatures of more than 30 degrees and looking at the parched yellow hills and amazing crimson and turquoise sunsets, I couldn't help wondering if the American Aina would have finally felt at home here if she'd witnessed these very atypical Devon colours, more associated with California or the French Riviera. And perhaps Highcross House itself might finally be feeling at home, as my colleagues have said, now that the weather was right for its design at last. And being in the house, we certainly appreciated the breezes provided by all the French doors and the windows, and I in particular longed to spend the night here on the outdoor sleeping terraces as they're described on the plans. And as Alison said, the house felt happy, open, energised. So I decided to weave this tapestry of the more sort of Californian colours I'd seen as I looked over to Dartmouth from the terrace over the last few weeks. It's an amazing view across here. And I wanted to weave it as a sort of gesture of care to Aina, because I think she must have felt so alienated from this landscape when she lived here. And I chose to weave it up here because when Aina was living here, the trees would have been much smaller and she would have had a direct view from here to the school's boarding house, where her husband had decamped to live with the school house mistress, who he was having a totally public affair with. And as I was weaving, I thought about the geographer Tim Ingold's assertion that one could think of the gesturing hand in mapping as a weaving hand. And I like the idea of weaving an alternative map of life at Highcross for Aina. And I've used the thread dyed with the ochre, gathered on the walk with Alison and Gavin. And the pink was wool is dyed with blackberry from my garden. So I like to think of these as sort of gifts of care and friendship to Aina from us. And I've written another love letter, which I imagined Aina writing as she prepared to leave Highcross House and return to America, which she did after a few short years in Devon. And I'll read that one to you now. So this one says, "My dearest one, I am unsure how to start this letter, how to begin to tell you that we've reached the end of the road. Ever since I first saw you, I have had a sense of the approaching brow of the hill, of a nearby precipice. I can no longer avoid it. I've arrived at the high crossroads. I must make a choice. Despite the pain it causes me, I choose the road away from you. For some time now, I've been held my course and stayed in my place, just as everyone expected of me. There have been many moments of great joy, great beauty, and most crushing of all, moments of great and renewed hope that all would become good again. I know now I was deluded in those moments. We are alien here. We should never have come. The rain is too persistent for us. The damp and chill in the air are seeping into our bones and sapping all our beauty. We are both aging badly. So I must return to the sun, the joy of a life not lived in shadows, dark corners and creeping backstairs. I know you can't come with me. It's not possible for you to leave your twin, your school. How it taunts me as I sit here, peeping at me through the trees and standing silent, sentinel, as I toss and turn all night. I toss and turn all night in the master's bedroom. Even the architect designed no place for me here. The sight of the school buildings is a constant reminder that your true devotions lie elsewhere. Your real purpose in life, it seems, to drive forward the ideals of a modern life. How modern it turns out you are after all. Well, I hope you enjoy making use of all four of your bathrooms. No doubt you won't find the bedrooms empty for long, or perhaps you'll just invite your guests to stay in the master's bedroom, in the bed I will no longer be sleeping in. I hope you find all the satisfaction you seek in this mini-modern empire that's being created here. When I came, I believed in the rhetoric of opportunities for free thinking, new models of society, egalitarian, integrated ideals of education. Your modernism seems to have taken a different turn and offers freedom of choice and space to breathe only for the few chosen ones. Your insistence on back stairs and tiny servants' rooms should have been a warning sign. How sad that your future lies in unrestrained individualism and years of miserable-induced decay. Sorry to sound so bitter. It's not that I haven't loved you. In fact, it breaks my heart to leave you. Perhaps a time will come when Californian sunshine finally dawns on this corner of England, and your designs for better living will come into their own. Or perhaps it will be too late by then, and people will have forgotten that once you stood for something and aspired to be part of a better future for all. Regardless, I have no intention that you'll be any part of the future of mine. I will not return again to England, so I must bid you a final goodbye. Goodbye, my dearest Highcross House. Yours, Anna, soon to be former Mrs. W.B. Curry. I like to know that's Anna's revenge. Before we finish, I'm just going to talk to you about something I've been thinking a lot about during this residency, and that is experiencing feelings of remoteness as a result of changes in a familiar environment brought about by climate change. And something I've been thinking about for a couple of years, and obviously being here in the heat wave just, kind of totally crystallised that. Because the changes to the environment in this vicinity have been really quite noticeable, been dramatic. And at times up here, it's as though the heat wave brought a sort of eerie stillness to the skies and fields, as though all the living things were trying to take shelter from the extreme temperatures, including Alison and Gavin. So I think many of us probably feel we've been experiencing a taster of the alienation from the familiar landscapes of our lives, that the climate emergency is beginning to expose us to a world that's only going to become more empty and more unfamiliar and more difficult to navigate. Tim Ingold, the geographer, expresses this possible version of the future so brilliantly in his writing on wayfinding. So I'm just going to read you a little quote from him. He says, "In the cartographic world, all is still and silent. The wind does not blow, neither disturbing the trees nor whipping water into waves. No birds fly in the sky or sing in the woods. Forests and pastures are devoid of animal life. Houses and streets are empty of people and traffic. Where nothing moves, there is nothing to which one can respond. At such times, the experienced traveller can lose his bearings, even in familiar terrain." So that's something I've been thinking about whilst I've been here, and in terms of feeling remote in the space that we know. So I'm just going to quickly finish by talking to you a little bit about the tapestry, since this has been my main consuming project whilst I've been here. So whilst I'm weaving, it's kind of weaving for me as a way of thinking through practice, and I've been trying to weave together in my head all the threads I've been following whilst thinking about the contemporary remote. And each thread sort of brings me back to the idea of remoteness as a sense of alienation and disconnection, as we've been talking about. And the physical act of bringing the threads together through the act of weaving made me think about how to combat these feelings. And to me, weaving always feels like an act of care and a kind of mechanism for repair. So I've included the words radical and care in the tapestry in an attempt to articulate this counter-narrative of the feelings of contemporary remoteness that I've experienced. And the words borrow heavily from the Elmhurst belief that radical hope was what was required to make their world a better place. However, their radical experiments, particularly in agriculture, came at a great cost. As Leonard Elmhurst wrote to his wife in 1931, "The risks that we have taken up to date with money, with goods, with land, and most of all with people, they appall and frighten me." I think many of us feel appalled and frightened by the risks that we continue to take as a society. And perhaps if we can move forward with an emphasis on radical care, we can repair some of the things which are causing us to experience increasing feelings of contemporary remoteness. It's a new phrase to me. I think it's a phrase which is being used, in different kinds of thinking. It's certainly something I'm going to investigate more. But just to finish, I just want to say that I have certainly experienced feelings of great care whilst I've been here. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Manu and Richard, Alison, Gavin and Mary online for providing such a nurturing atmosphere here for the last few weeks. And of course, thanks to Highcross House itself for looking after us. And I'd also like to acknowledge Richard's writing the love letter to Highcross House that he shared with us, which is really interesting, inspiring. And the Trust publication on Highcross House and Anna Neyman's book, The Utopians, which you could get in the shop. It's a little plug. So they've all provided great insights into the history of the house. So thank you for giving me your time and attention. For too long.
Thank you, Emma. That's wonderful. Okay, we're going to head back downstairs. So I'm going to turn this off and we'll join you in a minute down for Mary's presentation downstairs.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We just wait for the others to reconvene here in the room.
Could we screen share, please?
Oh, yes.
You should be able to
Okay,
now.
you want to try it, Mary? Just make sure it's...
Okay. You are all right. So, have you got that?
Yeah, we got that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes.
You just bear with us for...
Sure. No, I'll hang loose, but I just thought it would save a minute.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Just going to get some water for everyone quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so handing over to Mary.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Richard, and thank you everyone who's on the Zoom call. I am obviously one of the students. You will understand that domestic caring duties mean that I can't spend the full 2 weeks on the residency. I did manage to get to Highcross House for 3 days earlier this week, which was really such a precious time. For the rest of the residency, I have been working where I am living, which is in Selborne in Hampshire. And one thing that always strikes me about this place is this sense of previous layered, to speak to Gavin's theme, layered generations of people who've lived and worked here. Soil is at the heart of my current practice. And so I challenged myself for this residency to do media that I just hadn't touched really at all. I started off by what I think would be called composting, working out from something that I knew to something that I knew a lot less. And I'd just like to talk to you a bit about that. The Anglo-Saxons who lived here were to me a source of great admiration. They managed to live on very little. What they couldn't make, what they couldn't grow, they didn't have. And I believe there's a lesson there for us in the midst of the crisis we are certainly facing in our climate. The area that I looked at, which I'd never even considered before, was the seasonal herding of livestock from fertile to less fertile soils. And my questions were, why did it happen and what actually happened? It's clear that for farmers here, they relied on the underlying geology to determine their farming practices. That was all they had. They had no way of manipulating the ecosystem or anything that was around them. I started, as I say, with what Tracy Waugh calls composting. In other words, I did a couple of paintings. I've done paintings of this sort before, where basically I collect soil pigments, grind them up, and then use them as painting media. These are two paintings from really the furthest end of what would have been the journey taken by the Anglo-Saxons when they moved their animals. So they're somewhat different in palette and in texture from the ones that I have completed before. These are the 6 main types of soil that are found in just over 1 mile near here in Selborne. It's an astonishing area. It's obviously geologically fascinating. It's been folded and washed over and so forth. But these are the colours that are dominant when you go out to collect. And yet I believe most people just think the soil's all the same colour. So I'm going to enjoy bringing this to people further as I exhibit my work. I decided to consider agricultural practice. How did soil affect the seeds? So I got hold of some spelt, which was the crop plant which was largely used by Anglo-Saxons. The Romans had brought it in, and I think the Anglo-Saxons continued to use it and rye and some other cereal crops, but spelt was pretty dominant. So what I did was take my samples of soil and I planted 30 seeds, 30 spelt grains in each pot of the soil that I collected, covered them in, watered them, and then in a somewhat scientific way, just continued to water them every day, same light, same temperatures, whatever those temperatures were pretty high. And on the left-hand side, you can see that day one, there's just the colours there. You've got upper green sand, which is the most highly prized soil, red clay, lower chalk, galt clay. Galt is very, very heavy, squidgy stuff. The Woolmer sand would have been the soil that when the Anglo-Saxons went on a journey, they would have ended up on that soil. It was considered the poorest of soils. And then the bottom right is middle chalk, which is the white that you often see in the South Downs and in the southern England. So I started off, I was really surprised that when they germinated, and of course, even more surprising was that the Folkestone or Woolmer sand, they germinated fastest, I think because the soil was so dark. I kept going, and over the period of the residency, here's a summary of where my results are so far. You can see that the pot on the right, which is the Folkestone sand, has had the weakest growth of crops. And I'll show you in a minute exactly what they look like. They started off fast, but they've made very little headway. And you can compare them to the growth in the other pots as they go along. Upper green sand is doing extremely well, which of course tells you that the soil dictates exactly how we live. I'm going to show you one other picture of this, and that is on the left. This was a few days ago. On the left is the spelt seeds that have grown in the upper green sand, and on the right, what's happened to them in the Folkestone sand. So you can see quite a dramatic difference here. And I think from this, I've drawn quite a lot on how we live is so much based on the soil beneath our feet. And I wanted to find a way of somehow visualizing that. I'm going to carry on watering these things, carry on growing them. I know Minu wants me to make some bread when they finally crop. So I have to do that. I have to do that. This work is part of the foundations for a bigger collaborative project with an environmental photographer who lives near me, and we intend to continue with it next year. I've learned so much from it in all sorts of ways, and I'd like to take you through the next area that proved very instructive. I was really interested in if you had been going out to herd animals, what would that have been like? You know, supposing I had had a herd of sheep and I had lived in 650, what would that have been like to take it a long, long way from home? And so that was the research question I really set myself. Let's just see if I can move this on. Here's a picture of a hut that is used up in the mountains even now for this form of summer settlement. Very simple. This one's actually quite elaborate. It's quite tall. You could stand up in it, but you can see there's space to sleep. There's a copper pot to cook on and a few wooden vessels, but that's really it. This is a very interesting photograph of somebody in Italy in 1982 who was literally herding, I think it says here, 150 cows, 500 sheep and 15 horses. He was going up, and I think we associate this movement as very much as going up. Here it's going down the valley to remove the livestock from the very best arable land it was. What was it like to make seasonal journeys with livestock? I've found various pieces of research on this. Generally, only part of the household went because the strong men had to stay behind and work the land. There's no record of precisely how this happened. Just remnants, bits of pens, bits of buildings. It's still being excavated. So I've written a first-person text, about 1,500 words, of one transhumance round trip, as you might say, with sheep in the Western Weald in 650 CE. That's still in draft form, but it's made me put myself into that mode. The other thing that really made me put myself into that mode was considering how I would have lived if I had made that trip myself. I found this in the woodlands around here, and I thought, well, that would be a great basis for a hut. You've got these pollarded trees, you could start working in there instantly. However, practicality ruled, and I realized that if I couldn't possibly in 12 days build myself a transhumance hut. So in the end, what I've done is set about making a maquette for a transhumance hut. I gathered materials, lots and lots of materials. It took more effort and time than I could possibly imagine. Plus, of course, it was extremely hot, but I would go out every afternoon, gather up bundles of stuff, bring it back. And once I put my stakes in, start weaving. I also scraped out the base of the hut where the hut was going to be. This was apparently quite common practice. I think it kept it cool and sort of snugged it down in the land. It's described as a Grubenhaus in all the kinds of professional archaeological discussions. I called mine a kreisförmig Grubenhaus because it's circular, and I don't know if they found anyone that was circular. But this was me. This was in Selborne, and I wanted to try and understand how it would be. This is just, it's a little bit of what would be called wattling, I suppose, just weaving wood between the vertical stakes. Takes a surprising amount of effort and a surprising amount of material and time to do this. but I've now finished it. I've got to the top. I've woven all the walls of it, and my next step is to go on and put a roof on it, which I decided would be thatch. So I've started to do that, but I need a lot more thatch material. And given that the residency is coming to an end, I have to consider whether I finish it off. I think eventually I will finish it off just for my own satisfaction. But it's been a remarkable period. The time in Dartington where I was actually doing a lot of writing and talking with my fellow students, and then the period here where I felt very remote and really got myself into the mindset of somebody leaving home for half the year just with animals. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mary. That's great. I think it would be good to just first of all, I should ask if there are any of the students from the other residency are hoping to or planning to present today. I see as
He does, George.
you did ask. Okay, so we have a silence. So no, I think is the answer to that. So I think it would be. Shall we throw things open now and then finish up with Alison's mini residency exercise? Okay, great. So I think we'll just throw things open.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, if you scroll up, there are a few really nice questions when Gavin presented and Alison.
Okay, so do feel free to chip in. Anybody, just turn your video on. Feel free to be. So I'm just sort of scrolling through the chat now and trying to dig out some of those comments and questions. So I hope everybody. The quality of the handheld was reasonable. I think I tried to kind of keep it as still and as slow as possible. So hopefully it was okay. So there was a question about paper from Sam. Do you want to just? Yeah, let's do that. You don't have to look at me. It is much better.
Paper. Oh yes,
Yeah.
It was Fabriano Academy. 200 GSM, really good paper, kind of just quite thick and takes quite a lot of punishment, but it's super cheap. It's about 27 quid for a 10-metre roll. So yeah, it's one of my favourite papers to draw and paint on. Yeah, it is.
Robin.
Gavin.
Is that a question from you, Robin, or is it just you muted, mate? Yeah. Yeah, you're still muted.
Yeah. No, I didn't have. I'm just animated. That's all.
Good. Sam, did you want to come back on that, or?
No, I just really like the work. It's just really it's very I say loose, so that makes sense. And I just love the size of it. It must have been, I don't know where you usually work, Gavin. Do you usually have so much space available to you?
No, I've got a broom cupboard at the studio, so it's nice to work big and have loads of space. Yeah.
Really nice. It was really nice was hearing the the backstory behind it. Yeah, super. It looks great in that space. I was super impressed by everybody's work. I mean, just absolutely fascinating. And it's really nice because I did my residency obviously with art.earth and just echo that very nurturing place to be able to produce some work. And thanks everybody very much. Really appreciated.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
There's lots of really nice comments in the chat rather than questions. So everybody, I'll make sure everybody sees those. Some nice feedback on the work. Is there anybody else like to come in and ask a question or make a comment or share something with the students who shared their work today? If not,
It's not obligatory.
it's not obligatory, no, absolutely.
Just say thank you to everyone for zooming in.
Yes.
Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
So if not, then I'm going to hand over to Alison just to do a little brief. She has a special exercise for us. So, so over to you. Why don't you come and how do you want to do this? Do you want
It's really
to,
fine because
can we see you there?
I did write a little something to go in the chat just to
Okay.
clarify. Before I start, I just want to say we missed you, Mary. You were only here for a few days and you were very much
Oh,
part of the group and wish you could have been
I
here.
loved it. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
loved it all. I want to use some of those phrases, those lines from Emma's piece about the missing and, you know, all of that. It just kind of really got me cracked up here. So thank you. And Gavin's paintings, I just wake up in the morning thinking about them, Gavin. You really nailed it.
In a good way, hopefully.
In a very good way. All that ochre.
I think prices, we need prices on them.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like your paintings do not want to leave this room or the house.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
You're kind of holding on.
Yeah, works so beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Yes, so a couple of days ago, so the background to this is a couple of days ago, I decided to create a micro residency for myself. Very time limited, 15 minutes. And I selected a cast iron inspection cover in the garden. I just happened to notice it. And it's something you just walk over. It seems relatively unimportant, but a large part of my practice is making the insignificant significant and noticing the unnoticed. So I spent 15 minutes. My practice at the moment is largely photography and video. So I took a lot of photos and some videos, which I have shared on my Instagram account. And I did cheat slightly because it started raining about 20 minutes afterwards. So I went back out to capture some video of the interaction with the raindrops. But what I'd like to invite you to do, if you choose to do it, is find a micro space or a micro place very close to you. Don't overthink it. Don't choose something that you're emotionally attached to. It has to be something that's quite mundane that you maybe don't notice. So it could be your desktop or a pencil sharpener or the fridge or your bed or maybe the dog's bed or maybe a paving slab outside, just something that you don't normally notice, and then spend, we've got 10 or 15 minutes.
Let's make it 10.
10 minutes engaging with it however you like. Movement, sound, video, photography, drawing, placing things, removing things, and then come back, and if you want to share, please do. We will also create a hashtag in case you want to share things on Instagram and you don't share on Zoom. And I'd be interested to know how you feel about that space or place afterwards.
Great. I'm
going to time it for everyone here. If your computer is on, you will hear me say when it's time to come back. If you're going outside, just time it yourself. Just for 10 minutes.
And I will attempt to put a timer clock on the screen too.
And Joe, we're going to come back to your question after this. Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
It's been 10 minutes. If you can finish your micro-residencies and come back to us for a short reflection.
Later, that's nice.
You want to just yell, time's up.
And the door looks very interesting.
Plenty there.
Yeah. When you start looking, you see so much more.
We have the most amazing doors at home. We live in partially on Georgian house.
Oh, that. Well, that's cheating slightly because that's interesting.
Well, yeah, when they did the conversion, they put new doors in. The doors themselves they're enormous. They must be 20 foot tall. They're amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, extraordinary.
So it's really high, proper Georgian high ceiling.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, everybody. I hope you're finding your way back, and when you open up your video as well, so we can see you, and we'll open things up.
That's if anyone's done it.
That's it. Well, they're in there, so engaged in doing it. It's not a study of copper.
Yeah,
Rosie. Is that Rosie? Rosie there?
I don't.
Yeah.
Is it? No, it's Rosie Jane. If it's Rosie Baxter, it's.
It says Rosie Baxter, isn't it?
Yeah, that's. Yes, she's one of our.
Is everyone back?
Robin.
Okay.
Robin's back.
I mean, now just a short, very short reflection. If you want to share anything or hold your phone against the screen, I'll show you what I've done. One moment.
Perfect micro arts things do at work.
So I've just been, lots of chestnut tree leaves outside. So I just did something beautiful and playful.
Lovely.
That's all. That's me. And I really enjoyed it. 12 minutes or 10, 15 minutes is a wonderful time to let yourself go and play without an agenda. I think that's a really wonderful form.
Anyone else want to share? Joe's, yes. Robin. Yeah, you muted Robin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so I thought I'd go to somewhere important but mundane in my flat, and so it was the loo. So
Excellent choice.
So I sat on the loo, and then created the image of me of the rain falling on Dartmoor, East and West Dart, running down Dartmoor, down the rivers, and all the springs and seeps and whatever, and the little tributaries from all the little valleys contributing to it, and then some of it being siphoned off and being cleansed, piped to me, to my loo, and then me despoiling it, and then being piped off to another cleansing place, waterworks, and rejoining all its brethren and in the River Dart, going and back to its source, the sea, and then going up to the clouds, evaporating into the clouds, and then raining on Dartmoor again. So I sat in the centre of this whole big circle. It was really interesting.
That's wonderful. So in a micro residence.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
As always, the students have disappeared since lost all of
You've done something.
Yeah,
Gavin's done something.
But yeah, I've to put my phone up so you can.
Yeah, you can do that.
And my phone's rubbish, so ignore the pink line. It's the mystery
Oh yes.
croquet hoop to nowhere, which we've kind of noticed in the garden. It's just alone, and I really like it as a framing device.
Looks like we're going to Star Wars.
I think it speaks to loneliness, doesn't it? Remoteness. It's on its own because it should be in a little set, you feel.
It's
Yeah,
a bit
it's all
lost.
isolated.
It's a bit lost.
I think it's
Whatever it is.
highly relevant, highly relevant. I've got something.
Excellent.
Just a minute.
All right, this is something that has to interest me but doesn't. And that is the area where there's rising damp in the cottage here. But I love the shapes. I love the colours. You know, the colour of the stone is the local malmstone. And then there was, obviously, it's part of it's timber framed where they put the malmstone down and then the wood on the top. So that's, you know, I could go all day on that one. If I really, I've never thought about it because I've normally been worried about the rising damp. But Alison, you're right. It makes you really focused, doesn't it?
It does. So you've now got a relationship with your rising damp.
Exactly. I always have, but this is another route in. Great. Are you going to your spiel at the beginning when you got us all going? Are you going to post that somewhere? Because I think it would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, we will.
It's a startup exercise, isn't it? It's great.
Yeah, I did write it. I don't know if it's been put in the chat.
Yeah, it probably has. It probably has.
Has
Sorry.
it been put in the chat? The instructions, the guidance. We'll pop it in the chat now. And
Yeah. Okay.
if
It
you
doesn't
want to
matter.
share, maybe we could have a hashtag, something like art.earth micro residency, something like that.
Yeah.
We've got
And
some
then you can
nice.
share photos.
We've got some really nice thinking from Grace. You put quite a long thing into the chat, which is really nice. Just giving a little flavour of the residency that she's just done at Outlandia. So Grace, thanks for putting that in there.
Tenderly.
I like tenderly.
Yeah, it's a great way to have a team. And Joe, I think you had a question about what people are taking away.
If we are all done with sharing about the micro residencies, then I would like to come back to Joe's question and open it up to the students. And Grace, if you want to come in, by all means, please.
I just think it's interesting thinking about remote. This house feels, I mean, not just temporarily remote because it's an old house that has seen better days, sadly, but also it stands between Schumacher and Dartington. It's kind of, you kind of feel quite isolated here. You're not part of that, and you're definitely not part of that. But there's sort of little interventions from both. So it's certainly not geographically remote, but you are also in this cradle of trees. So it's not the remote I was expecting. I was expecting to be on Dartmoor or in woodlands, but it has felt remote here in a really good way.
I think it's interesting because it's positioned. If you think of the name, Highcross House, initially it's called Highcross Hill.
Oh, was it?
That was the name because of the hill where it's built. And, you know, there is, in fact, on old maps, you can see it better as sort of very gentle crossroads here. Like, really now it's gone too far to the two roads into the hall, I think. But you do have that sense of being up high with a kind of perspective across everything, particularly for me, I think, because I've been up there nearly all the time, so you probably felt more enclosed than I have. I think it's definitely somewhere you feel that sense of you've got the long view kind of across lots of perspectives, but you certainly are not sort of that close to anything in particular. So it felt very protective, actually. Protective from the heat and also just protective.
I think there is a question from Joe here who I'm interested for all to reflect on what aspects of the contemporary remote and this residency experience you might take forward in your practice. If you have something, you can reflect on that now a little bit or later in your work.
Do you want me to go for that? I suppose I've been thinking about it quite a lot since the presentation I was talking about it. I think definitely I want to do some more weaving because I've really enjoyed doing that. Really enjoyed the way it's kind of integrated into my thinking about things. And I'm really interested in that term, the idea of radical care, which is kind of actually partly come out of a conversation I had with Minu as well, which is really helpful. And partly one of the sort of intentions I had for this residency was about trying to integrate all the different elements of my practice and sort of more elements of myself. And I think as a mum with still quite relatively young children, you know, care has been a big part of my life and still is. So I'm really interested to try and integrate that into my practice more on that sort of term about kind of encompassing a kind of care-based perspective on lots of issues and kind of bringing that into the work. I think it's the thing I'm going to really be thinking about. So perhaps not so much about remote, but
Thanks.
Yeah, I think for me, just reflecting on it now, kind of, I think the aspects of kind of contemporary remote I'm taking away is kind of where things sort of correlate with my sort of temporal existence and sort of seeking the remote, something I think I've been aware of always doing since being a child is seeking the remote, and I think I'm kind of interested in why that might be and how that ties into place. And, you know. So autobiographical, I guess.
Yeah. I think I've come to realise that remote isn't geographical, it's to do with the state of mind. And I'd like to explore that more. I think it can be remote in a coffee shop in a city centre. Oh, sorry, I'm just listening to a blackbird.
Yeah.
That's upset about something. In terms of taking my practice forward, the tutorials with Manu and Richard were really helpful and clarified that play is really important and experimentation and sort of an alchemical practice about looking at materials and how they interact. And I do want, I was really hoping to visit some of these sites, old mines, old industrial sites. I was hoping to see a charcoal burn. I was hoping to visit clay works. But I think I had already decided maybe what my final project was going to be, but I think this working in that area, looking at extractive practice and the industries that supported it in the past are probably going to be the focus, but certainly more basically doing the things I was hoping to do. So visiting these sites with pinhole cameras, recording them, interacting with them, maybe taking some pewter to mine sites, tin mine sites, and also exploring the materiality of the materials. So, you know, metal and ochres and clays and charcoal and where that might take me. So it's further experimentation really, and just seeing what excites me, following my excitement, really.
Following your fascination.
Following my fascination.
Mary or anyone else, would you like to come in?
I think this whole thing really underlined yet again that doing is instructive, that thinking about doing is perhaps a precursor, but you can't get away. If you do something or you try and do something, you learn, no doubt. And the second thing I felt, because we all, I think, were deliberately challenged by the MA course and by our hosts, to do things that were experimental, not to just, carry on. If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. And I don't think that's a marketing cry. It's perfectly true in art too. And I think what was exciting was to start into something entirely different, having no idea, absolutely no idea what was going to happen. That sort of made my spine tingle. And then when I spent time at Highcross House, seeing that everyone else had really launched themselves into the same thing, although we were all doing wildly different things, we'd all said, right, this is it. We're going to have a bash at it. And I really, really felt that was restorative. It was refreshing. It was perhaps the essence of a residency. I don't know.
Thank you, Mary.
But thank you for giving permission for us to just do it.
Good, thank you, everyone. I think we'll wrap it up.
Five new messages. It says 5 new messages.
There are some new messages down there.
Just
Yeah,
in case
it's been really great for your time. Thank you so much for giving your time to be here. This was recorded. It will go up on our website. We've got lots of images that we'll share. Many of them are on Instagram already. And I think that's it.
Oh no.
Mary,
No.
we're going to close this. Mary, we'll close this session and then we'll reopen the residency link. So if you want to just come in, we'll just do a little.
And I'm really running short on time. I've probably got 15, but I'll try. The residency link I've got somewhere. Have I? Yeah, it's on WhatsApp, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'll give it a go. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks a lot. Bye. See you in a minute.
Thank you. That was really amazing.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye from the
Thanks, Robbie.
1930s.
See you, Joe.
Joe.